Do you remember this conversation with Arya T'Loak in Mass Effect 3?
Then why are you here?
Cerberus stole Omega from me. The elusive man is now squarely at the top of my shit list. You will pay for every second I've spent in this bureaucratic hellhole.
Arya goes on to give a very brief overview of how Omega was lost, and she speaks even more about these events during the Omega DLC. However, there is much more to the tale than what we learn about in-game. If you are ever curious to know the whole story, you'll find it in the comic book Mass Effect Invasion. In this video, I'll tell you a bit about the comic and then give recommendations on whether or not it's worth reading. For your convenience, this video is divided into chapters. The review section will contain spoilers for Invasion, Mass Effect 3, and the Omega DLC, as well as some light spoilers for the entire Mass Effect trilogy, so watch with caution. Mass Effect Invasion is a prequel comic setting the stage for Mass Effect 3's Omega DLC. It features a story by Mac Walters, script by John Jackson Miller, art by Omar Francia, colors by Michael Atiyeh, and lettering by Michael Heisler. It tells the story of Arya T'Loak, fighting off Cerberus forces attempting to seize control of Omega. What begins as a panicked defense against Cerberus's failed Reaper test experiments eventually turns into an all-out war for the space station's future. General Oleg Petrovsky, leader of the Cerberus military, provides a worthy adversary to the Pirate Queen, but even he is unaware of the larger plans at play, finding himself a pawn in a much bigger game. Invasion is a great thrill ride of a comic. The story is fast-paced and action-packed, featuring incredible artwork that makes the big moments and action set pieces feel impactful and exciting. Most Mass Effect fans will enjoy reading this comic, but there are a few considerations and folks I have in mind that will get the most from reading Invasion. First and foremost, Invasion is not a complete story. It essentially ends on a cliffhanger that is resolved in Mass Effect 3's Omega DLC. With that in mind, this comic is best read as a companion piece to the DLC. Specifically, I highly recommend reading Invasion to those who are about to begin the Omega DLC. Of course, reading it afterward is always an option, but reading it beforehand will provide you with the best experience, both of the comic and the DLC. Fans of the Mass Effect novels Ascension and, more importantly, Retribution will also find a lot to like in Invasion. Some of the events in these books factor into the comic, especially in the dynamic between Arya and Cerberus. That said, reading the novels and playing through Mass Effect 3 and the Omega DLC is not necessarily required to read Invasion. There is still much to enjoy from reading this comic on its own, so I generally recommend it to all fans of the Mass Effect trilogy. Although reading Invasion may get you excited to play the Omega DLC, be forewarned. Invasion is featured in the Mass Effect Complete Comics collection, which I generally recommend to all Mass Effect fans. But it's also available separately, which could be a better decision for folks only interested in this one comic. The best part of Invasion was, of course, Arya T'Loak. She's a total badass in this comic. Her biotic powers are on full display in these pages, and they are spectacularly drawn. The fight to keep control of Omega becomes personal for her, so it really feels like she's holding nothing back. Even beyond her biotic abilities, Arya's intellect and strategic skills are thoroughly demonstrated in Invasion. She adapts to new situations and developments quickly, allowing her to redirect and anticipate her enemies' plans. The respect she commands as a leader, which is very prominent in the games, is also a highlight of her character. Arya is truly the only person capable of taming Omega, as the gangs just fight each other relentlessly with her gone. Not even the higher-ups in her own crew can command the respect and attention that comes so naturally to Arya. There is almost no one who can match her, with the exception of General Petrovsky. They are pretty evenly matched when it comes to tactical knowledge and military strategy, which makes for a great back and forth dynamic between the two. If you only play the Omega DLC, this relationship can feel pretty underbaked and even forced at times. Invasion gives their rivalry more time to breathe and develop, which definitely makes playing through the DLC much more fun, allowing the stakes and tension set up in the comic to pay off in a satisfying way. Overall, Invasion does a remarkable job of establishing the hero-villain dynamic between them. Speaking of Petrovsky, I didn't really like or care about him when playing just the Omega DLC. He seemed like just a generic bad guy. After reading Invasion, however, my perspective on the general completely changed. The comic fleshes out his character in interesting ways, making him more than just a cartoon-like villain. His adoration for classical military strategies and philosophies initially rubbed me the wrong way, but it grew on me the more this character trait appeared in Invasion. It's distinctive. It succinctly conveys his respect for military excellence, which gives the impression that this character always has a plan. It makes for great moments as a reader, because we may not be privy to the strategies he has in mind, but we know that they'll be successful, and there is a kind of satisfaction in seeing his plans play out as he expects, despite him being the villain. His role as the villain of this story is also great, because it is paired with other characteristics that are inherently likable. Petrovsky loathes the fact that the Elusive Man used him and his people as a diversion. When Arya sees this before he does, it bothers him, jabbing at his concept of being intellectually superior. He admits these flaws in ways that humble himself, and he makes vows not to let any more of his troops die needlessly. Even Arya recognizes that the general has some admirable qualities to him, going so far as to say that Petrovsky almost has a mind of his own. He is another example of a brilliant mind corrupted by Cerberus's awful ideologies. It's interesting to ponder how useful someone as smart as Petrovsky would have been fighting against the Reapers instead of for Cerberus. One clever way to make an evil character or antagonist likable in any story is to give the reader another character who is even more evil. Colonel Ash plays this role very well. Ash is even more despicable than Petrovsky, exemplifying the worst of Cerberus's beliefs. As much as we don't want Petrovsky and Cerberus to win, we want Ash to fail more. It's incredibly satisfying when it happens, too. Being responsible for your own demise is a reliable storytelling trope that happens to fit Cerberus operatives quite well. The Elusive Man is another very evil character in Invasion. Although he appears only a few times in this comic, his presence is large and fearsome. At this point in the timeline, he is more of the unhinged madman that he is in Mass Effect 3, which is interesting to see more of. Not all the side characters were evil, however. Anto, Arya's Batarian bodyguard and assistant, was an amusing highlight of this story. It's cool to see such a minor character get a mini arc, one that unfortunately leads to his demise. I never would have thought that the random bodyguard from Mass Effect 2 would have a role like this. It's a fun thought to imagine all the other side characters in the series that could go on to have more important roles. I also have to mention the amazing portrayal of Omega in this comic. The artwork beautifully depicts both new areas and recognizable locations from the games. Even more than the architecture and design of the space station, the inhabitants play a big part in helping create the vibes. It's amusing to see how Omega descends into chaos so quickly after Arya leaves. It's a brilliant way to describe the station's culture. It's also interesting to show how fast everyone pulls together when led by Arya. Omega feels like a character in this story, and it's great. Thanks for watching. If you end up checking out Invasion, please leave a comment to let me know what you think, and be sure to put appropriate spoiler warnings for your discussion. If you have any questions about the story or characters, please also feel free to comment below and I'll try to answer them or get around to them in a future video. If you liked this video, be on the lookout for my coverage of the other Mass Effect novels and comic books. I also have several theory videos coming, so stay tuned. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.